Welcome to the Inside Silverstone podcast, a business-focused podcast covering all things tech, engineering and innovation. Hosted by me, Chris Broome, a huge tech, motorsport and gaming fan, and also the owner of Longhurst, a firm of lifestyle financial planners and independent financial advisors located in Silverstone, Northamptonshire. This is a series of unscripted and unpolished conversations with leading business owners, thought leaders and high-tech talent where we discuss their experiences within the Silverstone business and motorsport region. We will also be asking them to share their knowledge, insight and their thoughts on the future just for you. If you're looking to learn more about the Silverstone high growth region and commercially connect with like-minded peers, you've definitely come to the right place. Welcome to Inside Silverstone. Welcome to the next edition of Inside Silverstone. My name is Chris Broome and I am your host. Today I am delighted to welcome to the show Richard Collins, who is from CSR Accreditation. Richard, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Chris, and thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, Richard. As is customary, as I always explain at the beginning of every episode, I'd love to quickly just do a quick career snapshot to give people a brief background of basically what you've done up to today, and then we can get into CSR accreditation, what the company does, and why we've basically asked you to come on the show. So is that okay if I do that, Richard?
Yes, but yeah, love.
Cool. Okay, so background, there's a bit of a theme here, which is great, which is all about environment and ecology and the green. So, but actually it started in, from what I can see on LinkedIn at least, 94 to 2012, you were the owner or co-owner of a business called Milestone Strategic Designs. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. A bit of
so what was that? That was some sort of consultancy business, presumably?
Yeah, so my background's branding, and that was an agency I co-founded back in the day, and I think we very quickly learnt, and it's something I still use. So there's a relationship between brand reputation and social responsibility. So there's a connection, and that's really along the lines that when we talk about branding, we often say that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So it's about reputation, word of mouth, referral, and we've moved into an age now, and especially in this current situation, where I think social responsibility is how people measure your reputation on the way you behave and the way you work to support the communities that you work and live in.
I think even more so now, right? So this is being recorded during the COVID pandemic, and you can see on social media, for the rare occasion I dip in and out of it on Twitter and stuff like that, how hotels that have kicked out homeless people through to restaurants and very wealthy, successful people furloughing their staff, how that could play out once this is all over, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think the thing is people will be remembered for their acts of kindness, and people will be remembered for doing things that weren't seen as being, strictly compatible with the situation we're in. And we're seeing, my passion is around social responsibility and the importance of that. We see a lot of businesses already doing that, and in fact we often find that all the businesses that have become accredited already deliver a level of social responsibility but don't really know that they're doing it. What we'd like to see coming out of the pandemic and into this kind of new era is social responsibility being embedded into the structure of all businesses as an important part of that business going forward.
Good. I mean, we'll come on to what you guys do at CSR Accreditation in a sec. So if I just quickly finish off the career snapshot. So a number of years as chairman of North Chilterns Trust, which was a sort of environment focused piece. You then had a thick end of 2 decades as the awards manager for the Green organisation.
Yeah. I mean, that's been a lovely story. The Green Apple Awards are the longest running environmental awards in the world. We're now over 25 years. I've been involved right from the beginning, really. I co-run or help support and co-run the Green Apple Awards for Environmental Best Practice, and also co-run the International CSR Excellence Awards, which come out of the same stable. So the continuity is there. And where I am at now, especially as you refer to EcoBrand, no doubt, was that we started to see that businesses were using their awards to talk about their branding. So there was that's where that kind of connection, the dots were beginning to get joined.
Yeah. So the next bit was obviously Eco Brand. So 2010 to present, founder of Eco Brand. So presumably that's again, assisting businesses in promoting and using the accreditation, which we're going to come on to in a minute, but using that as a means of telling good stories.
Yeah, so EcoBrand was set up because we recognised there were loads of companies out there across all sectors that were doing some really amazing work with the environment and with their social responsibility, and we wanted to help them promote that as part of their branding, as part of their brand language, and to create that engagement for their staff and their customers. And so EcoBrand, was born out of that, and actually one of the things we did at the very beginning was look at awards for car dealerships in terms of the fact that car manufacturers were making increasingly greener cars, if you like, electric cars, and that the dealerships were, burning lights 24 hours, doors open, etc., etc. So we started our journey by looking at a category for car dealerships. We worked with the SMMT to come up with 7 steps for sustainability as a bedrock for that campaign, and that's kind of continued in terms of the green, the built environment and the Green Apple Awards. I think then once we identified that we wanted to take this further to social responsibility, the accreditation, which we'll talk about in a minute, initially was a tool that we were developing so businesses would have a way in which they could be recognised for the social responsibility activities they were doing. In the 18 months since we started that journey, it's become so big that we ended up developing a business around it.
Well, let's talk about that business. So 2018, you founded or co-founded a business called CSR Accreditation. So what is that business? And for those that have heard of this phrase but don't really know what it is, what is corporate social responsibility?
Okay, so
over to you.
Thank you. Well, I mean, corporate social responsibility is historic. It was established in the 50s, and it was to enable businesses to talk about the things that they did above and beyond their core purpose. So about how they looked after their staff, how they looked after the environment, how they looked after the communities, and how they supported charities. So, a large piece around philanthropy. It became, the word corporate is the thing. It became an activity that big corporates used, and as we came through the 80s and into the 90s, you found that big organisations like BP and Sainsbury's and Marks and Spencer's, the big brands that we know, were really kind of, working to develop strong social responsibility programs. Now, we were approached because the International CSR Excellence Awards have been running for nearly 8 years, nine years. We were approached by Bucks Business First, who are the big membership group in Buckinghamshire, to look at accreditation. And this was about 3 or 4 years ago. So we went and explored that, found out that there was nobody delivering an accreditation program around corporate social responsibility. So we thought, well, we're going to do it. What we want to do is we want to define what social responsibility is. So the first thing we did is we identified 4 pillars of environment, workplace, community, and philanthropy. And then we decided quite recently actually to challenge the C. So we had this a campaign which we called the C Change, which was to say, look, the C in CSR is not inclusive enough, and we need to make it more inclusive. So what we've developed is now community social responsibility, which is for the public sector, charitable social responsibility for the third sector, company and corporate social responsibility for the private sector, and then below that we have consumer responsibility for products and services, citizen social responsibility for our individual contribution, and collective responsibility, social responsibility, the pools to hold them together. So what we've tried to do is open that up, and we were independently assessed and accredited ourselves by Bucks University and the Institute of Administrative Management. So we were scrutinised in terms of our processes and what we do, and that's allowed us to work closely in education. So, the reason that, if we're going to work with universities, and Bucks University is one of our, first gold accredited organisations, we can't call them corporate, that's got to be community, hasn't it? So, so we kind of said, right, for the new decade, at least now, we are now making, in the UK especially, we're saying, this is what CSR is, this is what the 4 pillars are, this is what CSR stands for. And then we're hoping that we can bring people in behind that, so they embed that into the way they run their businesses.
Okay, great explanation. And so for focusing on businesses and the corporate piece, what are some good examples of social responsibility?
Well, I mentioned the 4 pillars, and actually because we were born in Buckinghamshire, so we've got a lot of good companies in Bucks that have become accredited. One company that I really like is a Wickham firm of accountants called Seymour Taylor.
Yeah, I know them.
And what they did is they recognised very early on the importance of social responsibility for all their audiences, especially with regards to staff engagement and retention. And so a nice project that they did was with the Chiltern Rangers, who look after the public green spaces in Buckinghamshire. And it was a team building day. So they contacted the Chiltern Rangers, they engaged with the Chiltern Rangers, not just as a one-off, but as a long-term partnership. The Chiltern Rangers then facilitated a training day. So all of their staff would go out onto the Rye in High Wycombe and work to create better biodiversity for nature, to tidy up the park, to tidy up the lake, etc. And what that did is it kind of ticked all the 4 pillars. So they were creating staff engagement, a good work piece thing. That was around team building and leadership skills. They also created a piece around supporting a local charity in terms of the Chiltern Rangers. And by supporting that charity, they also contributed to an environmental piece by looking after that local environment and making it a nicer place that in turn supported the community. So it made it a nicer place for the community to enjoy. So that's a lovely example of all things coming together. But we have companies like BP Collins, who are very strong when it comes to sport. They're very strong when it comes to kind of supporting leisure centres. And again, they have set up a really, really lovely scheme with the Community Foundation Trust Heart at Bucks, in which that they've managed to give an annual funding that is then delivered across 4 or 5 community charity projects within their area. And those projects come into their business and tell them what they're doing. So there is that connectivity. So the staff, I think it's very important to comment that, social responsibility isn't just a tick box. It's got to be properly evidenced activity, and it's got to bring everyone on the journey with them. So there's some good examples there. And as I alluded to, Buxton University, phenomenal in the way that they brought in the student union, and that has really had a huge impact on volunteering as well. So supporting the community that way.
And are there such things as bad examples of social responsibility, ways that companies are just being irresponsible or are attempting to be responsible but failing because they're not grasping a certain point? I'm literally just thinking on my feet here. So are there examples of bad?
Yeah, sadly there are. And that's where our model makes an attempt to make sure that that's not possible. So our model is about evidenced activity. It's independently assessed. When you achieve a CSR accreditation, that mark will link to activity that you are delivering. So people can challenge it. That's so important. Where there are bad examples, and not with any of our accredited companies, but we can look at, say, Volkswagen, with the way that they try to cover up their emissions, fiddling with corporate social responsibility. So they tried to run a big corporate social responsibility campaign that kind of attempted to hide some of the stuff that they were doing as a business. And I think, unfortunately, there are examples of some of the big, global corporates who have used social responsibility in a way that has been to kind of hide something that their business is doing that isn't acceptable. And like people are accused of greenwashing, there is that kind of whitewashing, in terms of CSR. We have to be really, really tough on this and make sure that when businesses say that they're doing things, they are doing things, and the byproduct of that is social impact. We have to measure that social impact. So an accreditation is a way of benchmarking what we're doing, measuring its success, and then reporting it.
Okay, because that sort of leads on to my next question of why get accredited. Because there's one thing companies doing and supporting local charities and knowing that they're doing it, and they're also supporting their staff with their own well-being and et cetera, et cetera. But then why actually then take the next step to go through a process, because presumably there is a process to then get accredited, which again they must have to pay for as well. So I'm a business owner, so why would I want to get accredited?
I mean, I could go on for hours about this, but I'm going to be as quick as possible. So obviously, we talked about reputation management and brand visibility. But, you know, in terms of staff retention, there's a cost to retention. Costa have said that their biggest asset, you know, or the biggest cost of their business is retraining staff. So if they can keep staff for 2 years rather than 6 months, that's £1 billion saving globally. So the thing is that, you know, for businesses, if they can engage staff, retain staff, recruitment, so the work we did at Buxton University suggested that 80% of students leaving university actively look for social responsibility on a company's website before applying for a job. It's absolutely huge. The other thing that the university said was that 5 years ago, the top jobs for students were in accounting and law firms. The top jobs at the end of last year was in third sector and public sector, where you see students looking for purpose and value in their employment choices. So now it's not just about the wage and the title, it's about purpose. And I think, you know, there's a big skills gap happening at the moment. The economy is going to suffer significantly as a result of what we're going through now. So, you know, being able to say, look, we are a caring and responsible company, and that we're going to give you that flexibility, we're going to look after you as a member of staff, is very important. And then in terms of tendering, businesses are now asked to show their social responsibility when tendering for work and when applying for investment. The London Stock Exchange said that they are routinely now looking at social responsibility as an indicator and marker before investing in businesses. So there's financial benefits there. And in terms of a direct cost saving, changing to LED lights, you know, shutting the doors at night, turning your computers off, you know, responsibly managing your waste. There's direct cost savings to your business by doing those things as well. And the list goes on and on and on. And I think, you know, in terms of supply chain as well, this has become incredibly important. We are now finding people, manufacturers, looking at their supply chain and actually auditing that supply chain to make sure their supply chain are complying to social responsibility. And if they're not, they're going to change their suppliers for other suppliers that are. So, you know, there's so many reasons why you need to be showing what you're doing. And the accreditation has become a way of writing a policy. So, you know, we look at those 4 pillars. If your business looks and says, well, what are we doing in the environmental pillar? I bet you're doing loads of stuff. You know, when you start to think about it and you write it down, you know, it's like, wow, we are doing more than we thought. When you're looking at workplace, you know, you may be, you know, providing flexible work time. You might be doing work from home schemes, oddly enough. You might be doing skills training, health and well-being, apprenticeships, work placements. And then in terms of charities and communities, I think most businesses, organisations, you know, have a passion for something that they want to support, either financially or through pro bono or volunteering. We've got a fantastic company we're working with in London who were working around, again, very topical, but this was pre-corona, around social isolation, and have encouraged all of their staff, 1 hour a week, paid time, to call and speak to elderly people to help alleviate social isolation, in conjunction with a charity, obviously, not randomly ringing people up, in conjunction with a charity. So, so I think the benefit for business is not a nice to do, it is a must do, because it has huge financial value to the business and huge social value to the business as well.
And what's the process? So, you know, if I wanted to take Longhurst, my business, through this, from start to finish, what's the process? How long does it take?
Well, we've made this very accessible for most businesses. You're looking at 1 to 3 days. The website has a very useful guide to how to go through it. So it's a step-by-step guide. We have an online application form. And the reason I think it's quite light in time is because we're asking you to identify what you're already doing. So if you've got an employment manual on processes, we want to see it. If you're doing stuff around ISOs, we want to see it. If you're, you know, you've got policies and schemes in place, then all we're asking you to do is audit what you're already doing. Because the first time you become accredited is the benchmarking. We will come back in 3 years' time and hope that you've improved that. So we would like to see you look through the lists and examples we're giving you and say, you know what, we don't do that cycle to work scheme, but maybe we should do. Or we don't do, this scheme around, recycling batteries, but we should do. Or we don't do apprenticeship schemes, but we should do. So what we're doing is we're saying, audit what you're doing against those 4 pillars, pull it together in the documentation we provided for you to do so, and let us have a look at it, and then we'll assess it.
And so is it you assessing it, or is there a panel of judges, or who actually underwrites and says, actually, Longhurst as a business, tick, let's give them the accreditation?
So we have an independent assessment panel of over 20 organisations in the public, private and third sector. Okay. They don't all come together. So the accreditation cycle is every 2 months. So the next deadline, for example, is the end of April, and then at the end of June. What happens is we have a look at how many accreditations have come in, applications have come in. We then ask panel members if they're available, and they come in. Now, the rule is that at least 3 members of the assessment panel have to look at every accreditation. They're given a strict criteria to score that accreditation against, and depending upon that collaborative score, they either get a bronze, silver, or gold. Now, if you fail to get accreditation, we don't. That's not enough. We will come back to you and say, this is why you didn't. Come back to us in 3 months at no extra cost, and and we'll reassess what you're doing. If you get a bronze, we'll do the same thing. We'll say, look, you could get a silver. This is why you didn't get a silver, because we are able to use gap analysis tools to identify where you were letting yourself down. And frankly, in almost all cases, it's evidence. Even if it's just a poster on the wall about recycling, if you can evidence what you're doing, and again, if you're supporting a community project or a charity, get them to write the impact report. So if you're giving 50 quid, it may not seem much, but that charity will come back and say, well, that 50 quid really helped buy us supplies. If it's £1,000, we give work, we give 5% of our accreditation fee to the Rennie Grove Hospice, and every time we do that, they say, thank you, that's paid for a palliative for her for 4 days. That's impact. That's so important, and you can start to use that as a business to deliver your own social impact reporting as well.
Great. We've already touched on it actually sort of 5-10 minutes ago. So on your website, I see, obviously supporting charities, but then also supporting schools. So just in a couple of minutes, just explain that. So the charity piece is a long list of charities that you've supported. In what format?
Well, the charities is creating a marketplace. It's creating a database, and actually we're in the process of partnering an organisation called Investors in Community that allow charities to put on that marketplace what we need, why we need it, and we then will get businesses to kind of like to engage with those charities. So what we're doing on the website is we have charities we support directly financially. So the 2 charities at the moment are the Rennie Grove Hospice and a charity around a skin condition called EB, and the charity is called Deborah. On the schools front, we know that that schools are already delivering their social responsibility. It's a very low cost for a school to be accredited, and we'd actually like a business to sponsor that. The important thing is that schools are delivering things in the 4 pillars. It's partly required by Ofsted, but we've delivered learning plans, we've written lesson plans for the students at primary schools and secondary schools. So we want a new generation of kids coming out of the education system into business, knowing what social responsibility is. And if the businesses that they're working for aren't doing it, making sure that they do it.
Cool. And I know that you're going to be running or are running a campaign for furloughing employees. Yeah. So what's that?
So we're going to be launching this in the next few days. It's with Investors in Community and their platform. Basically, it's creating an army for good out of your furloughed staff. We've got a huge proportion of the population now being paid in some way or another to stay at home and do nothing. Now, this is an interesting thing because, during the Queen's speech, we're being asked to do nothing. Being asked to do nothing is really hard. Being asked to do something's easy. If you can help support your country, then I'll do it. Being asked to do nothing is very difficult. So what we're doing is we've put this platform together. The platform already exists. It's a giving platform, and it allows furloughed staff to volunteer. Now, under furlough regulation, staff are allowed to volunteer. You can volunteer your professional time, or you can volunteer your personal time. So what we're doing is we're matchmaking. We're having charities saying, look, we need some accountancy, we need some legal work, we need a brochure designed for us, we need some medical supplies delivered, we need someone to ring round people in social isolation. So what we're doing is we're trying to give purpose and value to staff who have to work at home. What a great thing that could be, for staff to come back in 3 or 4 months' time and say, well, actually, I did do something. I didn't just sit there and do nothing for 3 or 4 months. There was something for me to do. So it's creating value and purpose for a workforce that have no choice but to stay at home. We'll launch the details in the coming weeks. In fact, when the podcast comes out, we'll have already launched this.
Great. So if I was going to exactly say that exact same thing, so if you can make sure you give me some links to these websites. I'll ensure they're in the show notes, and so people listening to this or watching this on YouTube can then go through and volunteer, which is great. And presumably businesses can. So how is it sort of matchmaking? So how's that going to work in reality? So let's pretend I'm furloughed for a moment, and I see something on this platform. Who's posted that?
So it works in 2 ways. The platform is sort of an empty platform at the moment. The idea is that we populate it over the coming weeks.
Sure.
Now, when you're furloughed, you're not allowed to work for your employer, and you're not allowed any communication. Your employer is allowed to direct you to a project, but that's it. And that project can't have any benefit to the business at all or earn any money for anybody. So the platform allows individuals to come on. Now they can say, I'm an accountant. I would love to be able to give some free accountancy. Get in touch. This is my details. I'm a graphic designer. Get in touch. I'm a van delivery person, get in touch. I run a garden centre, I've got all these flowers sitting around doing nothing. I'd love it if someone could deliver them to care homes or whatever it might be. On the other side is I'm a charity that desperately needs an accountant, or I'm a charity that desperately needs some legal advice. So the platform's populated from both sides. Or if you're a business that's already supporting a charity, put the charity up there, add it. So over time, we're hoping that this kind of notice board will be contributed to by people saying, this is what I've got to offer, and this is what I need, and then hopefully the two can come together. And if it's an accountant sitting in their home in Aylesbury, and it's a business in Northumbria that needs a bit of accountancy, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that we have to work from home anyway. So it's just a question of creating the opportunity for people to do something of value while they're furloughed.
Well, what I can do, I'm also part of a next-gen community of sort of sub-40-year-olds, which I'm barely just in, financial planners, and some phenomenal financial planners around the country, including clearly Buckinghamshire and Northamptonshire. And so once that goes live, I'll share it within the community, within the Slack community that I'm part of. And so, that some people may want financial coaching or support with some sort of advice or whatever, and I'm sure, including I, would give up time to do that. So, great. You're also part of, as a business, the Silverstone Technology Cluster, which my firm Longhurst is also a member firm of. So, why did you guys join the STC?
Well, as we were invited really to get involved, partly because I'm working with the Community Foundation Trust Heart of Bucks, and one of our supporters is a member of the STC, and they invited us to meet with Pim and have a look at what we could do. And I think the thing is, we find that to spread our message around social responsibility, it's good to work with membership groups because we have an audience that we can talk to. And we felt that that the members at the STC would benefit from learning about social responsibility. The thing is that we found is that if we go in and talk about CSR, people don't know what we're talking about. If I go in and say, look, 5 ways to engage staff, 5 ways to make your business a better business, 5, we can talk about those drivers, how to be an employer of choice, how to, access funding or tendering, then that becomes an interesting topic. And then we can follow that up and say, well, that's the way to do that is by delivering on your social responsibility. And when people know what that is, understand about the 4 pillars and understand about the sea change, then the penny drops. And we've seen this happen time and time again, of people looking a bit blank at first and then going, actually, and they stop telling us what they're doing. We're doing this already. And it's a great thing for me. It's a lovely thing because I see the great, the goodness in people all the time, and the best of us. So by becoming members, we're hoping that we can deliver some workshops, some training, and talk to individual companies about how they can become accredited and show that they're a caring and responsible company.
Good. I think you'll have success. The STC is now 100 plus, 115 members, and we are, as a community part of Silverstone Park, which in itself has, I think, a couple of thousand members within a sort of an hour's drive of Silverstone Circuit. So I think you've got plenty to go at, and especially with the connection to industry and manufacturing and motorsport and cars and technology. I think that, and clearly electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles, I think there's a big audience there that are going to want to talk to you. So good. We're now 29, 30 minutes into this interview, Richard. Hasn't that gone quickly? So
always does, doesn't it?
Always does. So, and I said we'll keep it to 30 minutes. So what we'll do, we'll start winding it down. So before I get into the last two questions, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you want to sort of say and get across whilst we've got you on air?
No, I think the only comment I'd like to make is that, you know, we're changing as a world. We're going to go into the next year or so in a different place, and I'm hoping that all the good that people are doing. I mean, watching the amazing thing that businesses are doing already, the innovation in the way that they're helping and support people in social isolation, people in the community, other businesses, it's just been really amazing. And I just want people to continue doing that. So that social responsibility does become, you know, a really fixed part of what they do as a business going forward. So I think that's the kind of like the overall kind of message I want to give is you know, this is, you know, an opportunity now to an opportunity for what you're doing to be recognised and measured, and to set you on a journey that continues years into the future.
Yeah, good. Right, last two questions. Embarrassing stories. So we love to share our wonderful interviewees' embarrassing stories. Whether it involves something silly at work, alcohol, stupid mistakes, because we all need a laugh, right? And so is there anything in Richard's locker that you'd be...
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's kind of what I do a lot of networking, and I'm in lots of membership groups, and I do a lot of talks, and I do a lot of events, and so I see a lot of people, and I'm reasonably okay with remembering people, but I do forget names, I do forget faces. And that's fine if weeks or days, you know, weeks or months pass. But I was at an event only about a year or so ago, and it was a networking event for one of the local business networking groups. And I met a local authority councillor who was like the guest of honour at the event. And I was chatting to her about what I was doing. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm really excited about what we're doing." And I then went round and shook a few more hands, and I came back to the same person and just introduced myself again. And I said, "Oh, you probably don't know who I am. I'm Richard." And she said, "No, I met you literally 3 minutes ago." And I just lost it, went completely red. I thought, "Oh God!" And the thing is, it was, you know, she was the guest of honour. It wasn't as if she was an anonymous member of the networking group. She was a figurehead there, and I had just got, you know, so caught in the moment, and you know, you know, you just can't recover.
It happens, right? Especially if you're meeting a lot of people, and you're chairing that event, or you know, you've got a lot of things going on mentally. So that's understandable, but a very good story. And obviously, presumably, she took it very well and well humoured.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where you know, it took me weeks. You know, you kick yourself and just reliving that moment as well. You know, just when you're as a professional, you know, and knowing how, you know, "Hi, my name's so and so," and and then just looking at you saying, "No, we literally just met 10 minutes ago." You know, and then you go, "Oh, I can't believe I've just made that mistake." So,
Great story. Last question, sir, before I let you go. Life advice. So we know we have students. We're talking about schools. We have students from local tech colleges listening to this, sixth formers, etc. That we've interviewed. We've done podcasts for mid 20s or 30 into episode 30, something like that. Life advice to a 20-year-old version of Richard. So take yourself back a few years before the businesses and the career. What bit of life advice would you give yourself now that you've become the master in what you do now?
Well, I think it's to, you know, find your purpose and follow it, you know, and incorporate that purpose in what you're doing, because I think, you know, you life can get behind you, and you can realise, you know, there are things that you're passionate about that you didn't do, that you didn't support, that you didn't get involved with, and you might regret. And I think the thing is that we all care about stuff. Since the Blue Planet, since you know, plastics in the ocean, we're aware of, you know, the environment a lot more. We're aware of the communities that we live in a lot more. And I think if there's things that you do that you care about, you know, pursue them, do something about it, and incorporate that in your life goal as well, because you'll sleep better. You know, it just makes you a more fulfilled person, being able to sort of follow your passion and deliver some purpose beyond the normal getting up in the morning, going to work and coming home sort of thing. So I think having purpose and following that purpose is an important thing to do. And I am seeing that. A lovely little story was at an event in Wickham a year ago, when I was I was walking back home, and there was a guy in his probably early 20s, and he was just picking up litter and sticking it in a plastic bag. And I thought, I'm going to ask him why he's doing this, because it's an unusual sight to see. And he said, I'm doing this because I live here. I live in that flat over there, and I care about where I live. I don't want it to be messy. And I just thought, that's brilliant. It's a little thing, but what a lovely thing to do. So I think, find some purpose and follow it. And I think you'll be a happier person for it.
Live a life of purpose. I couldn't agree any more than that. So Richard from CSR Accreditation, thank you so much for coming on the show. To everybody listening to this, certainly if you're listening to it through iTunes, please leave us a 5-star review so more people can find us, and also Richard through the iTunes rankings. Richard, keep safe. Thanks for coming on, and I look forward to seeing you at some of the STC events, whether they be virtual for the time being and then eventual physical. Very much look forward to physically meeting you in due time. Thank you for coming on the show.
Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
The Inside Silverstone podcast is produced by the team at Longhurst for the benefit of those with a passion for all things tech, engineering and innovation. For more information, please visit longhurst.co.uk/Inside Silverstone, whilst also remembering to give us a 5 out of 5 star rating on iTunes. Please note that neither Chris Broome or Longhurst work for Silverstone Park, Silverstone Circuit or Silverstone Technology Cluster.